Most people do not lose because they lack talent. They lose because they lose perspective. The battle is not always happening around you. Many times it is happening inside you. You can have opportunities in front of you and still feel defeated because your mind has already accepted failure before the journey even begins. That is why perspective matters so much. The way you see your life will shape the way you live your life. There are people who walk into every situation already expecting disappointment. They expect relationships to fail. They expect doors to close. They expect life to hurt them again because pain has become familiar. And when you live that way long enough, fear starts making decisions for you. You stop dreaming boldly. You stop praying confidently. You stop taking risks because somewhere deep inside, you convince yourself that things never work out for you. But faith changes perspective. Faith does not mean ignoring reality. Faith means believing reality is not the final authority. It means understanding that your current situation is not the complete story. Just because things are difficult today does not mean they will stay difficult forever. Just because you cannot see the answer yet does not mean God is absent from the process. Some people only trust when they can see everything clearly, but faith says, even when I cannot see the whole path, I still believe I am being guided. That changes how you walk through life. Instead of panic, there is peace. Instead of constant fear, there is expectation. Instead of assuming the worst, you begin to believe that even hard seasons can produce something valuable. Think about how many people miss opportunities because they approach life already defeated. They pray small prayers because they expect small results. They hold back their effort because they assume failure is coming anyway. Their perspective becomes a prison. And the dangerous thing about a negative perspective is that after a while, it starts feeling normal. You become comfortable with doubt, comfortable with fear, comfortable with expecting disappointment. But you were not created to live with a defeated mindset. You were created to trust that even in struggle, something meaningful is happening. Sometimes God is working in ways you cannot immediately recognize. Sometimes the delay is developing patience. Sometimes the rejection is redirecting your future. Sometimes the pain is strengthening parts of your character that comfort could never build. A person with faith sees difficulty differently. They still feel pain. They still have questions. They still face uncertainty. But they refuse to believe that the storm is greater than God's ability to lead them through it. That perspective becomes strength. When your perspective changes, even your language changes. Instead of saying, nothing good ever happens to me, you begin saying, I believe something greater is ahead. Instead of saying, I'll probably fail, you start saying, I'm going to give everything I have and trust God with the outcome. Instead of constantly replaying fear in your mind, you start rehearsing hope. And hope is powerful. Hope gives tired people the strength to keep going. Hope helps people survive seasons they thought would break them. Hope reminds you that your current chapter is not your final chapter. Some of the strongest people in the world are not the people with the easiest lives. They are the people who learned how to hold on to faith when life became difficult. There will always be reasons to doubt. Every day brings uncertainty. Every season brings challenges. But perspective determines whether those challenges become walls that stop you or lessons that shape you. You cannot always control what happens around you, but you can control what you believe within you. You can decide whether pain will make you bitter or wiser. You can decide whether failure will define you or teach you. You can decide whether disappointment will destroy your hope or deepen your faith. And sometimes the greatest transformation happens when you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what can God do through this? That question changes everything. Because faith begins to recognize that even broken moments can carry purpose. Even waiting seasons can prepare you for something greater. Even setbacks can become setups for growth. What looked like the end may only be the beginning of a different direction you never expected. The people who keep moving forward are not always the people with perfect lives. They are the people who choose to believe that their story still has meaning. They choose to believe that God is still working behind the scenes, even when they cannot feel it immediately. And that kind of perspective creates resilience. It creates courage. It creates peace in the middle of uncertainty. When faith changes your perspective, you stop seeing yourself as abandoned. You stop seeing obstacles as permanent. You stop believing that failure has the final word over your life. Instead, you begin living with expectation, trusting that no matter how confusing the season may feel, God can still bring good out of it. Most people wait for proof before they move. They wait for certainty before they trust. They wait for visible results before they believe anything good is happening. But the problem with that mindset is that it keeps people trapped in hesitation. If you only move when everything feels guaranteed, you will spend most of your life standing still. There's something powerful about acting with confidence before you see results. That is what faith looks like in real life. Faith is not sitting back and hoping something changes while doing nothing. Faith is movement. Faith is action. Faith is showing up even when you are unsure how things will turn out. Too many people allow fear to control their decisions. Fear tells them they are not qualified enough, talented enough, smart enough, or strong enough. Fear convinces them that failure is inevitable. So they begin shrinking their dreams to match their insecurities. They stop applying for opportunities. They stop speaking up. They stop trying because disappointment feels safer than risk. But confidence rooted in faith changes everything. When you believe that God is working in your life, you stop approaching every situation with defeat already in your mind. You start walking differently. You stop apologizing for taking up space. You stop doubting every step you take. You begin understanding that confidence is not arrogance. Confidence is trust. It is believing that even if you do not have every answer, you are still capable of moving forward. Some people think confidence only comes after success, but real confidence often comes before success. Athletes do not wait until after the championship to believe they can win. Leaders do not wait until after the breakthrough to act decisively. People who accomplish great things learn how to move before they see evidence. That is difficult because uncertainty makes people uncomfortable. We want guarantees. We want visible signs that everything will work out. But life rarely gives complete certainty in advance. Most of the important moments in life require stepping forward before you know the outcome. Think about how many opportunities are lost because people hesitate too long. They spend years waiting for the perfect time, but perfect conditions almost never exist. There will always be risks. There will always be unknowns. There will always be reasons to doubt yourself. At some point, you have to decide whether fear will be your master or whether faith will be your guide. Acting with confidence does not mean pretending challenges are not real. It means refusing to let challenges define your future before the battle even begins. It means waking up and deciding that your mistakes, failures, and setbacks do not have the authority to determine who you become. Some people carry old disappointments into every new season of life. Because one relationship hurt them, they stop trusting completely. Because one opportunity failed, they stop trying boldly. Because one prayer was delayed, they stop expecting good things. Their past becomes a lens that shapes every future possibility. But faith teaches you not to let yesterday control tomorrow. You can experience heartbreak and still love again. You can experience failure and still try again. You can face rejection and still believe there are doors waiting to open. Confidence grows when you realize that setbacks are not proof that you should quit. Many times, setbacks are simply part of the process of growth. Nobody develops courage by avoiding difficulty. Courage develops when you keep moving despite uncertainty. Every time you choose to show up instead of hide, every time you choose faith instead of fear, something inside you becomes stronger. And confidence influences more than just your mindset. It changes your behavior. The way you speak changes. The way you carry yourself changes. The way you approach opportunities changes. Instead of entering situations expecting rejection, you start entering with peace. Instead of assuming you are going to fail, you begin giving your full effort without constantly doubting yourself. People can feel the difference between insecurity and confidence. One constantly seeks permission. The other moves with quiet trust. Again, confidence is not arrogance. Arrogance says, I do not need anyone. Faith-filled confidence says, I know God is with me, so I will keep moving forward. There will still be moments when fear whispers in your ear. There will still be days when uncertainty feels heavy. Confidence does not mean you never struggle emotionally. It means you refuse to let fear make your decisions for you. Sometimes the breakthrough comes after you take the step, not before. Sometimes the strength appears after you begin moving. Sometimes the door opens only after you have the courage to knock. That is why acting with confidence matters so much. It positions you to experience things fear would have kept you from ever discovering. Fear keeps people frozen, but faith keeps people moving. And many of the greatest opportunities in life are waiting on the other side of one courageous step. Your mindset is one of the most powerful forces shaping your life. Long before people see the results of your actions, your thinking is already influencing the direction you are headed. The way you think determines the way you respond, the way you speak, the way you handle pressure, and the way you approach opportunities. That is why two people can face the same situation and walk away with completely different outcomes. One sees possibility while the other only sees obstacles. Many people underestimate how dangerous negative thinking can become when it is repeated over time. A single fearful thought may seem small, but when fear becomes a pattern, it slowly builds a mindset of defeat. People begin expecting disappointment before anything even happens. They assume relationships will fail, opportunities will collapse, and dreams will never become reality. Eventually, they stop trying wholeheartedly because deep inside, they already believe failure is waiting for them. Your mind will always move in the direction of your strongest thoughts. If your thoughts are constantly filled with fear, doubt, insecurity, and hopelessness, those emotions will begin shaping your decisions. Fearful people hesitate when they should move. Doubtful people shrink when they should speak boldly. Insecure people settle for less because they no longer believe they are capable of more. What starts in the mind eventually appears in behavior. That is why mindset matters so much. Some people spend years trapped, not because they lack talent, but because they lack belief. They talk themselves out of opportunities before they even begin. They compare themselves to everyone else and convince themselves they will never measure up. They rehearse worst-case scenarios so often that anxiety becomes their normal way of living. But faith changes the way you think. Faith does not deny reality, but it refuses to let negativity become the loudest voice in your life. Faith teaches you to believe that even when circumstances are difficult, your future is not hopeless. It teaches you to stop defining yourself by temporary setbacks. One failure does not make you a failure. One disappointment does not mean your life is ruined. One painful season does not mean joy will never return. People who develop a healthy mindset understand that thoughts are seeds. Whatever you plant repeatedly in your mind will eventually grow in your life. If you constantly feed bitterness, fear, jealousy, and hopelessness, those things will influence your spirit. But if you feed your mind with truth, hope, gratitude, and faith, your perspective begins to change. The challenge is that negative thinking often feels easier because life gives plenty of reasons to worry. Every day brings uncertainty. Every season brings pressure. People experience rejection, heartbreak, financial struggles, unanswered prayers, and moments of confusion. Pain has a way of trying to convince you that darkness is permanent. But your mindset determines whether pain becomes your prison or your teacher. Some people go through difficult seasons and become bitter. Others go through difficult seasons and become wiser, stronger, and more compassionate. The difference is often found in perspective. One person allows hardship to destroy hope. Another person chooses to believe that growth can still come from struggle. That does not happen automatically. A healthy mindset requires intentionality. You must guard what you allow into your mind. Constant negativity, comparison, and fear can slowly poison your confidence without you even realizing it. Many people are emotionally exhausted because they spend every day feeding their minds with anxiety. You cannot constantly speak defeat over your life and expect to walk in confidence. Your words matter because your words often reveal your mindset. When people constantly say things like, nothing ever works out for me, I'll probably fail, or things never get better, they are reinforcing hopelessness within themselves. Eventually, they start believing those words so deeply that they stop expecting anything positive from life. But there is power in renewing your thinking. When your mindset changes, your expectations begin to change. Instead of waking up assuming disaster is coming, you begin waking up with hope. Instead of seeing yourself as powerless, you begin recognizing the strength God has placed inside you. Instead of allowing fear to dominate your decisions, you start moving with peace. Mindset also affects resilience. People with hopeless thinking often quit quickly because they interpret every setback as proof they should stop trying. But people with faith-filled thinking understand that obstacles are part of growth. They do not collapse every time life becomes difficult because they believe hardship is temporary. A healthy mindset does not mean you never struggle emotionally. Even strong people experience fear, discouragement, and moments of uncertainty. But they refuse to let those emotions permanently define them. They learn how to fight negative thinking instead of surrendering to it. Sometimes the greatest battle of your life is not external, it is internal. It is the battle between fear and faith, despair and hope, insecurity and confidence. And many times, victory begins when you stop agreeing with the lies that have kept you stuck for years. You are not disqualified because you made mistakes. You are not forgotten because life became difficult. You are not weak because you faced disappointment. Your future is not determined solely by what happened to you. It is also shaped by what you choose to believe moving forward. When your mindset begins to align with faith instead of fear, your direction begins to change. You stop living as though defeat is inevitable. You begin moving with expectation, believing that even in uncertainty, God can still create purpose, growth, and new beginnings out of every season of your life. Pain is one of the hardest realities of life because nobody naturally wants to suffer. Nobody wakes up asking for heartbreak, disappointment, rejection, or loss. When difficult seasons come, most people immediately ask, why is this happening to me? That question is understandable because pain can feel confusing, unfair, and overwhelming. Sometimes it seems like life is falling apart while everyone else appears to be moving forward without struggle. But one of the most important truths you can learn is that pain can have purpose. That does not mean the pain itself is good. It does not mean suffering becomes easy. It means that even in moments that feel broken, God can still produce something meaningful. Some of the deepest growth in a person's life happens during seasons they never would have chosen for themselves. Many people only see pain as interruption, but sometimes pain is transformation. Sometimes what feels like destruction is actually preparation for a stronger future. The difficult part is that growth rarely feels comfortable while it is happening. We want immediate understanding, immediate healing, and immediate answers. But life often unfolds in ways we cannot fully understand in the moment. There are lessons success cannot teach you. There is strength comfort cannot develop. Some qualities are only formed when life becomes difficult. Patience, endurance, humility, compassion, resilience, and deeper faith are often built in painful seasons. Think about how many people become stronger because of what they survived. Not because the struggle was enjoyable, but because it forced them to grow in ways they otherwise never would have. Pain has a way of exposing what truly matters. It strips away illusions, pride, and false security. It reveals your character. It reveals your dependence on God. It reveals the strength you did not know you possessed. Some people spend their entire lives trying to avoid pain at all costs. They avoid risks because they fear failure. They avoid vulnerability because they fear heartbreak. They avoid stepping into purpose because they fear rejection. But a life controlled by fear eventually becomes a small life. The truth is, pain is unavoidable in this world. Every person will experience disappointment at some point. Every person will face moments of grief, confusion, and uncertainty. But pain does not have to destroy you. It can shape you. The danger comes when people allow pain to make them bitter instead of wiser. Bitterness slowly poisons the heart. It convinces people to stop trusting, stop hoping, and stop believing anything good is still possible. When pain is left unresolved, it can harden people emotionally. They build walls around themselves because they believe protecting themselves from future hurt matters more than living fully. But healing begins when you realize that painful seasons are not proof that God abandoned you. Some of the strongest faith is developed in moments where nothing makes sense. Anybody can trust when life is easy. Anybody can praise when prayers are answered immediately. But real spiritual maturity often develops in waiting seasons, in unanswered questions, and in moments where you must choose faith without complete understanding. There are people today who are stronger because of battles they once thought would break them. The divorce taught them resilience. The failure taught them humility. The rejection redirected them toward a better path. The loneliness deepened their relationship with God. The closed door protected them from something they could not yet see. Sometimes pain becomes the very thing that pushes people toward purpose. Many people discover their calling through struggle. The person who survived depression becomes a source of hope for others. The person who overcame addiction begins helping people find freedom. The person who experienced deep loss develops compassion they never had before. Pain can create empathy. It can soften hearts. It can teach people how to love more deeply because they understand suffering personally. That does not mean every painful moment will immediately make sense. Some wounds take time to heal. Some losses leave scars that never completely disappear. But scars are reminders that you survived. They are evidence that pain did not have the final word over your life. One of the greatest mistakes people make is assuming that difficult seasons mean their story is over. In reality, some of the greatest breakthroughs happen after moments of deep struggle. Many times, God does his greatest work in hidden seasons where everything feels uncertain. Pain also teaches dependence. When life is comfortable, people often rely on their own strength. But when life becomes overwhelming, people begin realizing how desperately they need God's guidance, peace, and strength. Suffering has a way of humbling the human heart. And sometimes what feels like delay is actually preparation. Sometimes God is building character before blessing. Because if success arrives before maturity, people can destroy what they prayed for. Pain can prepare you emotionally, spiritually and mentally for responsibilities you are not yet ready to carry. The difficult part is trusting that purpose still exists while you are hurting. It is hard to believe anything meaningful could come from brokenness when emotions feel heavy. But over time, many people look back and realize the seasons they hated most were the seasons that shaped them most deeply. Pain may change you, but it does not have to ruin you. It can become the place where your faith grows stronger, your character becomes deeper, and your perspective becomes wiser. Even in suffering, God still has the ability to bring growth, healing, and purpose out of what once felt impossible to endure. Fear has stopped more people than failure ever will. Many people never step into their purpose, not because they lack ability, but because fear convinces them to stay where it feels safe. Fear whispers that they are not ready, not qualified, not talented enough, or not strong enough. Over time, those thoughts become chains that quietly control decisions, relationships, opportunities, and dreams. The dangerous thing about fear is that it rarely announces itself loudly. Sometimes it hides behind excuses that sound reasonable. People say, I'm just waiting for the right time, when in reality they are terrified of failing. They say, maybe I'm being realistic, when fear has already convinced them to lower their expectations. They avoid taking chances because uncertainty feels uncomfortable. But a life controlled by fear eventually becomes a life filled with regret. Fear keeps people stuck in places they were never meant to remain. It keeps people silent when they should speak. It keeps people hidden when they were created to make an impact. It keeps people trapped in unhealthy relationships, trapped in insecurity, trapped in routines that slowly drain the life out of them. Fear makes people settle for survival instead of growth. You were not created to spend your entire life hiding from possibility. There is something tragic about watching people live far beneath their potential because fear became stronger than faith. Some people have dreams they never pursue because they already imagine failure before they begin. Others have gifts they never fully use because they constantly compare themselves to everyone else. Fear convinces them that they will embarrass themselves, disappoint others, or prove they are not enough. But courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is moving forward even while fear is present. Every person who has ever accomplished something meaningful has faced uncertainty. Nobody begins with complete confidence. Nobody walks through life without moments of doubt. The difference is that courageous people refuse to let fear make their decisions for them. They understand that growth requires movement. A ship is safest when it stays in the harbor, but ships were not built for harbors. They were built to sail through open water. In the same way, you were not created to spend your whole life avoiding risks, challenges, and opportunities. You were created to move, to grow, to trust God beyond your comfort zone. The problem is that comfort can become addictive. People get used to routines that feel predictable, even when those routines are making them miserable. Fear tells them staying stuck is safer than stepping into the unknown. So they remain in environments that limit them because familiarity feels less frightening than change. But staying stuck has consequences too. Fear may protect you from temporary discomfort, but it can also rob you of transformation. It can rob you of relationships, purpose, growth, healing, and opportunities you were meant to experience. Many people pray for change while simultaneously resisting the very steps required to reach it. Faith often requires movement before certainty appears. Think about how many breakthroughs happen only after people decide to step forward despite fear. The opportunity appears after the application is submitted. Healing begins after vulnerability. Growth happens after taking risks. Strength develops after enduring challenges. If people wait until fear completely disappears, they may never move at all. Fear also distorts perspective. It makes obstacles appear larger than they really are. It magnifies failure while minimizing possibility. It convinces people to focus more on what could go wrong than on what could go right. Over time, fear-filled thinking creates small living. Some people become so focused on avoiding pain that they unintentionally avoid purpose. They stop dreaming because disappointment once hurt them. They stop trusting because betrayal wounded them. They stop trying because failure embarrassed them. Their world becomes smaller and smaller until survival replaces faith. But God did not create you merely to survive life. You were made to live with courage, expectation, and trust. That does not mean life will always feel easy. Courage often feels uncomfortable because growth stretches people beyond familiar limits. Every new level of life requires leaving behind some version of safety. There will always be reasons to feel afraid. Every season brings uncertainty. Every opportunity carries risk. But fear cannot become your master. If fear controls your decisions, it will eventually control your future. One of the most powerful moments in life happens when a person decides, I may feel afraid, but I refuse to stay frozen. That decision changes everything. It opens doors. It creates momentum. It allows people to discover strength they never knew existed within them. Sometimes courage looks dramatic, but often courage is quiet. It is simply showing up again after disappointment, trying again after failure, trusting again after heartbreak, praying again after silence, believing again after doubt. The people who grow are not always the people with the least fear. They are the people who choose movement despite fear. And many times the miracle is not that fear disappears completely. The miracle is that faith becomes stronger than fear. That shift changes the direction of a person's entire life. Instead of remaining trapped by insecurity and hesitation, they begin walking with confidence that even if challenges come, God will guide them through every uncertain season.